Hello, welcome back to the A Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Amir Hamid. Joining me today will be Morris Cesario.
Hey, how are ya?
Oh yeah, buddy. Alrighty. So, last night was probably the biggest gut punch of the year for the Leafs. I would say,
Yep.
like the
Mhm.
last one with the Pens that got Mike Babcock fired. That was okay because all the players banded together and wanted to do that to get him
Yeah.
out of there.
hmm
This was a whole different. It was the first low point of the Sheldon Keefe era.
Yeah, I think so. Like, we got another one coming tomorrow, so I really hope there's a bounce back, but it was brutal. Like, I turned it off right after the first period. I forget if it was either 2 or 3-0, but I basically turned it off. I'm like, yeah, I got other ways to entertain myself. Like, I, I watched the first period, and from what I saw,
I
Mike
stopped watching it after the
yeah,
first.
like Mike Sullivan had the Crosby line matched up against Matthews the entire period, and it was like men against boys. Like they were getting just outchanced, outpossessioned, everything. Like it didn't look good.
And yes, it was shitty that the first penalty of the game against the Leafs shouldn't have been a penalty.
hmm
The slash from Timashov, but like, I mean, still. And the worst part about this game was like, me and you both stopped watching after the first period, and then you get the updates on your phone. It's like, oh, 3-0, 4-0,
hmm
5-0. I
Yeah.
And then I was listening to Steve Dangle's LFR today, and
hmm
basically he's like, no, the Leafs lost 5-0. Okay, it doesn't count scoring 2 goals after
Garbage
you're down
time.
5.
Yeah.
So and there's it's tough to put blame on like specific people
Yeah.
because you could say, hey, Freddie Anderson, don't allow 5 fucking goals. Which,
hmm
yes, sure. But then you can be like, well, are any of them really his fault? Not like a lot of them were tap-ins on the power play, right?
Yeah.
So
Like
that was
Crosby finding Zucker across the ice. Brian
exactly.
Russ getting the shot. He roofed it on Anderson. Like, what is he supposed to do? Like on a power play, like Sid's
Justin
gonna
Hall
be
falling
Sid, and
asleep on like a cross-seam pass and
yeah,
not getting there quick enough. Like it's it's shitty because
yeah,
you're like, what do we do differently? Because it's one of those games where you're like, let's just burn it all, like forget about it. But then
yeah,
again, you can't really do that because you got to get back on the horse like
hmm
Thursday.
yeah,
And it's like, oh, do we go away from Freddie? Do we go with Jack Campbell? Like, I
hmm
mean, Freddie's been picking you up for the last 3 years now,
for real.
and you're not gonna go with, and you're just gonna hop on a Jack Campbell train just like that. It's not like Jack Campbell was incredible in his
Yeah,
4 games that he's played.
hmm
Like he's been good. He
yeah.
hasn't been great. He's been a significant upgrade over Michael Hutchison, but it hasn't been anything close to what you've seen for Frederick Anderson at his peak.
I think it's just the fact that we've seen such a huge increase in the play of the backup that they're now starting to make this the whole, oh, is Jack Campbell gonna make a run for the money for
Because
the
he was
starter?
somewhat
Because it's
confident.
yeah, like because now we have a actual competent backup goalie that can give some relief to Freddie. Now all of a sudden it's why are we even playing Freddie now if we keep losing 5-2 to teams, right? Like I don't buy it. Like I think that he's still been the guy. Like the last 3 years worth of playoff runs, like he's been the guy. I'm with you on this. Like you can't just discount that and not make it the focal point of your goalie decision, right? Like he's been the guy. I think you run with him, through thick and thin. Like it's been a tough patch all around. Like the defense has not been playing well at all, especially like it got exploited big time against the Sabres, and then yesterday was just
In that like minute stretch where they allowed 3
yeah,
goals. It was
like
brutal.
you.
I was switching back from watching the All-Star game to the Leafs game. We
Mhm.
watched Leafs tie it up. We're like, sweet.
Yeah,
Switch back to the All-Star game. We're down 4-2 and then 5-2, and we're just like, what the fuck is going
right.
on?
Like how can you go from the beginning of the period to like the midpoint of it, from being down 2 to now tied, and then within the matter of like it was like 42 seconds, like they gave up 3 goals, and like the
And it's
worst
not
one
the
by
first time
far.
that's happened. Like where they've
I
just
know that's the
allowed like
problem. Like there's
goal.
just huge lapses that they just break down. It was against the one against the Rangers was brutal, and now the one here against the Sabres again. Like you can't be getting outskated if you're Tyson Barrie and Rasmus Sandin by Kyle Okposo. Like
Yeah. Yep. And okay, so bringing up the point that you made earlier, it's like yes, the defense is bad. The Leafs
Mhm.
need better defensive players. Like, but they just
Yeah.
need their overall team to just be better on defense. Like
Yeah.
that includes all the forwards. So it is like a stylistic change, but wasn't that what you brought in Mike Babcock for, to play that kind of style? And it's like the
Mhm.
team in the what 4 years that he was here, they learned nothing. They didn't
Yeah.
learn to play that 200-foot game, and under Keefe, it's been much of the same where they can
Mhm.
score with anyone, but they can't defend anything. And yes, does
Yeah.
Dubas need to go out and get a defenseman? Absolutely, but like, what are you giving up, and how significant is that upgrade? What, like,
Yeah.
whatever it is, and then okay, so the Leafs obviously trade for Dennis Malgin, flipping Mason Marchment for him with Florida, but like, I think it's a good deal because he's at least going to play on your fourth line, I guess, and
Yeah.
he's going to be a competent player because they haven't gotten anything from their bottom six in forever. Like
Mhm.
Kapanen had that one goal, the OT
The
winner
O2
against
winner.
Arizona, and that's it.
Mhm.
He's been a shell of himself. Janssen's been injured all year. Um, who's you got Jason Spezza playing your third line center, and
Yeah.
I mean, he's been fantastic, but like, what are we doing here? Kerfoot's been garbage. I
Yeah.
like Kerfoot is a
He's only
great
been well when he's playing with Tavares. Like he
Kerfoot.
drops assists there now and then, but when he's on his own line on the third line, it's been stagnant. Like nothing's happened.
Kerfoot does a lot of good stuff out there on the ice, but he has no finish
Yeah.
whatsoever.
He's a high IQ player, but he has no finish.
No, like he's shit Zach Hyman, because Zach Hyman stuff goes right for him.
Yeah.
With Kerfoot, just nothing, nothing goes right for him.
Zach
He
Hyman,
doesn't know why.
it's like Zach Hyman's in front of the net. It hits him off the leg and it goes in.
Yeah.
Kerfoot's like it hits him off the leg and it hits the post and it goes out. Like,
No, it goes in his own net. So like, okay, it's weird that Florida and the Leafs would make a trade with each other
yeah.
after like
Well, they're hunting the same spot right now, and they're what 2 points back with a game
yeah,
in
and they're
hand.
that's their main competition. But I guess it makes sense. Like, I'm sure Marchman will get a chance with Florida, and
Hmm.
Mulligan. Like, the thing that interested me about Mulligan is I was looking up like his goals from last year, and when I was watching him, most of it was with the second line of Florida when it was Huberto, Trocheck, and then it was Mulligan. I was just like, oh, that's cool that he can at least play up in the lineup and play with competent players. And he has these, he's like shifty, and he can make good cuts like for tap-ins and stuff
Yeah,
around in front of the net, like in the slot area. So I thought that was interesting, especially from a guy that's only like 5'9".
yeah,
Um, so if he can add some scoring touch to the bottom six, I think that's a significant upgrade, because you don't need the player that Mason Marchment is, because you get Kyle Clifford, and also like you're just a team that they
hmm,
don't emphasize toughness in a
yeah.
way that other teams might. So
Where like you have your one player in Clifford that's going to give you that sort of spark of physicality and tenacity on the back end, but like yeah, if you add any sort of player like Malgin that can give you a shot in the arm in terms of depth scoring, like they need it desperately at this point. Like Matthews is the only one scoring. He did it again yesterday. Like
Mhm.
there's got to be some sort of depth scoring in order to make this playoff run. Any if they want to be relevant, they're going to need to have some sort of production from, and even the blue line. They brought it up again. I think it was in the Buffalo broadcast where like the Leafs are 28th in scoring from their defensemen in the entire league. Like they've got like no more than like 10 or 15 goals like from the back end. Like it's been everywhere, not just the bottom six, but also on the blue line. And I know there's been injuries, but like it's been heavily reliant on the top six, and it's been just more and more apparent. And I hope this deal figures something
I mean,
about that problem, right?
yeah, the scoring from defensemen, like, so you mean purely goals or like goals and assists?
Goals.
Okay, so I can rationalize it a little. Riley's been out. Like, you
Yeah,
lose Jake Gardner's from last year. Um,
you'd like to
Barry didn't
think you could
score
offset
until
that by Barry though,
Barry didn't
right?
Barry didn't score until
Until Keith came around.
Babcock.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that's tough. I'm trying to look up Steve Simmons, what he said about Matthews. Fuck. Um, 1 second.
Like, it's just been hard. Like, you have Matthews, who's basically on pace for 60 goals. We haven't seen that since Stamkos. And there's Ovechkin, Pasternak, and him that are all in that race right now. And I mean, there's got to be some sort of help for him. Like, he's basically doing it all himself. I know other guys like Tavares been on a bit of a hot streak of late. He's been putting the puck in the net, but like you said, like the bottom six, I mean, this hopefully will help. He's a steady guy that's played fourth line minutes. He could play in a top six role on Florida, where he's played with good, competent players offensively. So, I mean, I really hope this works. I mean, they didn't give up much, right? Like you said. So
no. I can't find it, but it was basically he called him like a stat accumulator, and I was just like, what the fuck? The one guy that's scoring goals you call a stat accumulator? Like, relax.
A stat accumulator in what sense? Like he's a stat hound?
Like Russell Westbrook is in the NBA. That's what
he only cares about his stats?
Well, no. That like I guess he puts up stats in bad games or something. Like meaningless numbers, like an Andre Drummond in the NBA, where it's like you get a 2020
blown out. Yeah.
Like I don't know about that.
They're getting blown out, but Russell Westbrook still gets this triple double.
Exactly. Which I'm like, I disagree.
But I don't buy that either. Yeah, I'm not with that.
Here's an idea. Mike Stevens of Yahoo, he wrote an article that was basically like, is Tyson Barrie the Leafs' Rudy Gay?
Sort of.
For people that don't know, Rudy Gay was on the Toronto Raptors. The Raptors traded for him from Memphis. And he came here, he scored 20 points a game, but the Raptors weren't good.
They didn't, there was no increase in their play as much as the fact that he put up numbers.
And I'll never forget this person I know who I went to high school with was a big Rudy Gay fan. Yeah. And his dad is a sports figure. And I'm like, you should know better. Rudy Gay is not good. And I told him this in high school. And it's just funny to see, because like when you took Rudy Gay out, you saw the actual results that happened.
Yeah, they didn't.
The Raptors
bring in
were trying to
names.
tank that entire year, and they ended up making the playoffs and making a run at. They won a title from trading Rudy Gay, basically. Yeah. Because they got the quote unquote cancer in a way out of the locker room. Not that like he's a bad person or anything, but like the thing that's deterring their play. Is Tyson Barrie that? I'm here for the argument. Like you can argue that because he doesn't play defense.
Yep. That's apparent.
He takes horrible shots in general. Is Tyson Barrie better than Jake Gardiner if they're both healthy?
That's the one comparison I was just gonna make, as you brought up.
We talked about it last show, and you guys shit on me. I'm like, I think Jake Gardiner is better. Like last year's Jake Gardiner when he was fully healthy. Like I don't know this year, but honestly, I kind of think.
I feel like we all kind of just, take what we see in terms of the point totals and everything. Oh, Tyson Barrie is a 60-point defenseman in Colorado. He's a great player. We'd love to have him.
And now when you see what we pay him $8 million.
Exactly, right? Like, and now that you see him play on the defensive end in Toronto night in, night out, and he's putting up a -2, a -3. Like, the goal against Okposo is the epitome of his play for me so far. Like, where he was the one that got outskated by Kyle Okposo. I mean, great player, but to me, he's never been a fast skater. Like,
he's a power forward.
That's what I mean. Right? Like, he's a big guy, a physical presence, but I mean, he's never been known for his speed. Like, how is he beating Tyson Barrie to the puck? Like, and it's not even that it was a defensive play he needed to make. All he needed to do was skate back.
Yep.
And he got outskated, and then it forced Rasmus Sandin to go and cross over to the right side, and he got beat to the puck and makes a nice play, and it's in the back of the net. Like, I mean, if there's one term I'm going to use, it's going to be Jake Gardiner-esque. And I mean, I feel like that's a discredit to him because he's probably going to do better at this point. Like, I know it goes completely contrary to what I said with Brent last week. Like, I'd rather have Barrie at this point. But I mean, a week later, we're losing to Buffalo. We're losing to Pittsburgh, and it's just looking worse and worse on the back end, and he's the focal point for me this week.
That's why it scares me to think, what if we're in the exact same scenario as last year, Game 7 against Boston, and we have Tyson Barrie on the back end? How good do you feel?
Not
I
very
do not.
No, not very good.
No. We see the prices that defensemen go off for, and we'll talk about them later in the show, but it's tough to even think any of those guys would make a significant difference, because I think it's like we said earlier, it's partially due to the way that they inherently play, the loose, open ice kind of like skating heavy game.
Yeah.
But it's also like you can't win that way. I've heard the argument, should the Leafs just like double down on this way and be like, well, Matt Dumba would fit what we do already, so why not just go all in full send? I'm like,
full hammer down on it.
I'm like, I like the player, but I don't think that works, because it's one of those things where if you look at the Houston Rockets right now in the NBA, how they're going without a center, you're never going to get the benefit of the doubt because no team's done it before. Yeah. So people are always going to doubt what you're doing until it actually works. And it hasn't worked for the last 4 years in Toronto, or 3 years. Well, 4 including this year. 4 years in Toronto that you've been in playoff contention. So why is it going to work now? It's just this loss. I think Leafs, we've talked about it. Leafs fans, like, they live and die with every game. And if you talk to us after the Arizona game, we'd feel a lot better than if you talk to us after the Buffalo game or the Pittsburgh game. Yeah. But I don't know, man. Like I said it months ago. I'm like, I just think that this is the year from hell with this team, with the injuries that they've had. This is the most injured they've ever been in their entire tenure. And also they just haven't looked right. Like, you change your coach mid-season, not even mid-season, like a quarter of the way through. Like, yeah, and then you expect them just to magically turn around. I don't think that you can do it that easily.
And I think that's the hardest part about it. They went a full, quarter, third of the season where they dug themselves in a pretty deep hole. And now all of a sudden the focus is so hard on Sheldon Keefe in terms of fixing this team around right now. And it's going to be hard.
He's kind of like, fuck, I don't know what what's there.
Like the margin of error right now is so slim for the Leafs team right now because of the hole that was whatever the record Babcock left this season with. Like,
for a first-time head coach.
Exactly. And I mean, for Sheldon Keefe to come in now, and I think they're right around like 60-ish in terms of percentage, in terms of their wins in their record. Under
They're fourth best since Keefe has taken over.
Like, I know Tampa's been on a huge stretch. I mean, Tampa.
The problem is, okay, so here's the stat I saw. The Leafs are fourth in win percentage or point percentage since Keefe took over. Problem is, Tampa's number 1 and Boston's number 3.
Yeah. And that's the problem, right? You're only as good as the third best team in your division, which has always been the hardest part for them, because automatically it draws you right back to Boston, where that style of play these past 2 years hasn't been able to get it done.
Yep.
And it's basically a revolving circle, right? A revolving door. It's a never-ending circle where it keeps coming back to the point where, is the style of play
the problem
working? Is it the problem? Is it what needs to be addressed the most? I mean, I'd like to think it's not, because like, nobody's ever made it work before. I'd like to think they can do it. I think the quality of players they have is good enough to try and win with this style of play. It's just because the defense looks so bad at times.
Here's the problem. What? Is it the style of play? And okay, so if that's the case, then can you turn it around in a month and a half?
Yeah.
Probably not. Is it the players? Which, how many of them would you have to take out? Like, it's one or the other, and there's no quick fix, in my opinion, to get them on the level of a Boston or Tampa.
Yeah, like especially now, what? How far are we from April now? Like a month and a half or so.
Yeah. Yeah.
And basically, you're gonna expect the whole team to adapt to a new style of play mid-season and try and get that to work in the play. It's not feasible, right? Like
Hmm.
it basically you're in a spot where you play out this style of play, the very open, skate heavy style that they're playing, and you live with it. You either make the playoffs or you don't. Like the season, I don't think you can call it a failure just because you've seen progress since Babcock was fired, right? So I think all in all, that's a win for this season. And I know people are already getting on Dubas where his window is shrinking in terms of how long he's gonna have as GM here, right? Like they talk about
Which
it
is the
so much,
biggest joke.
and it is, yeah.
Because
Like
if Dubas doesn't get until after next season, it's a joke.
I couldn't agree more. Like that's the problem. Like there's so much
Like, you're
pressure.
gonna
Like
give him half a year with the coach that he had, and not even a training camp with
that's
him.
what I mean. The timelines are so fine where it's like you said, like the Leafs fans die or resurrect on the daily of a game where it's like, well, now that things are going well, they better make the playoffs, and now that things are going bad, they better fix something. Like it's just the nature of the beast in Toronto, right? Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about what can get done at this point to make it a quick fix. Like it's just not going to happen. They either stick to what they got, or if they're going to really make a huge change, like they can't expect to make the playoffs out of it.
Yeah. So then that could bring up. Do you want to have the conversation of whether or not the Leafs should be sellers or guys that they could potentially get first?
I mean, I'm definitely in for this discussion now. Yeah.
Okay. So which one, the sellers or buyers part?
I think they could still make playoffs,
No, no,
right?
of
Like
course
that
they're
being
still
said,
gonna be.
like that being said, I don't think you sell off, your expiring guys. Like I wouldn't go and sell Barry at this point. You already made the decision at the beginning of the season to have him in your lineup. He's on an
He's
expiring
gonna
deal.
be here, and then he's gonna be.
Colorado was what do you call him? Retaining salary to have him here. I mean, you go for it at this point. Do I agree with maybe making a huge splash? Like I don't know, like for me, Dumba or Manson are the only two that would really make
Or
an
needle
appealing.
movers like that.
Yeah,
I think
and
there's
even
one
then, I
more
don't know how
that
far that
I think
pushes the
there's
needle.
one
If
more
I'm
that
being
intrigues
honest,
me, but there's one more that intrigues me, but I don't think it's um it might not
be,
be as
be
significant.
realistic.
It might not be as significant enough that the Leafs need.
Well,
Like
that's the thing.
Damon Severson, if you had him as your first pairing D man with Riley, like I think it's better than what you got.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure. The problem
but
for me is that even if you add a Dumba or a Manson, I don't even know if that's going to push the needle because, it's
no,
still
I
the,
agree.
the style of play, right? Like if
It's the
that,
exact same style of play. No, you're right.
right, you add a Dumba who's he's a good skater. He can move. Like he's got a power of a shot. I mean,
Hmm.
at the end of the day, if the back four are still not going to be able to hold up their own in terms of defensive play, where, Barry and Dermott are going to get caught on plays that lead to
Then it's just
goals
Groundhog Day
every
all
game,
over
then
again.
you've wasted a full shot at it, giving up what God knows what assets.
Yeah. And then so this was Pierre LeBrun apparently on TSN 1050. He says the Leafs can't or slash won't come up with the assets to acquire Dumba. The conversations have been there with the Minnesota Wild. It says teams won't get Josh Manson from Anaheim unless it's a huge overpay. In which like Manson's a player that like what he was drafted in like the 4th or 5th round, and like
Mm-hmm.
it's those guys that it's so hard to like find, but then once you do, it changes everything because it's like a 4th or 5th round pick that's worth like 2 first rounders when you actually can trade a
Yeah,
guy. It I don't even think Manson makes that big of a difference to this team. I think it's
that's the
I
thing.
think it's a mindset kind of thing with the Leafs. And I don't know if they have that yet. Maybe it's just like a battle scars thing with like the Caps. To how they needed to go through like losing every single time and running at the Penguins all those times. And maybe it's the same thing with the Leafs. And then they could finally break through one time. Like I think that they need to like experience failure in terms of we don't even make the playoffs, or maybe we just
Yeah,
get
something's
absolutely
finally
shelled in
gotta
the playoffs
click.
to make them think, oh shit, we actually have to play good.
We saw a glimpse of it when, they were a bit in part, but they had Babcock fired, right? Like, it's like, shit, we
Mhm.
got to get our shit together. And I think,
Yep.
if something catastrophic where they don't even make playoffs this year happens, I think next year it's going to be a huge wake-up call in terms of how they play, and not just the style, but just how much effort goes in each night, right? And I mean, guys are going to score, but at the end of the day, if you're not playing 200-foot game that, you see working with the Tampas, the Bostons, the St. Louis's, that, they're perennial threats for the cup every year, and it works, right? You look at Ryan O'Reilly, O'Reilly and Bergeron are the two best two-way players in the game right now.
No, the
And
Leafs
they go
just
head
made a
to
trade.
head. What's that?
The Leafs just made a trade.
Oh, don't scare me.
Okay,
Uh-oh.
I can't really eat pizza right now.
The Leafs just made a trade. Now's not the time for pizza.
Can you go? Just put it downstairs. I don't want it to get cold. Oh my god! All right. The Leafs traded for Max Veronimo from Ottawa for Aaron Luchuk and a conditional sixth.
You had me real scared.
Oh, did I?
Yeah, I thought they pulled off something big.
No, so I just saw this guy. The Leafs are going all in.
Max Verano for Aaron Lynchuk and a conditional
I'm looking him up.
sixth.
His numbers. Is he a D-man or what? He's a right winger. What are we doing? He has 5 goals and 5 assists in the AHL this year. He's played 4 games in the NHL.
Not the trade we were expecting, but obviously they see something in this guy that they also gave up a pick.
Now my entire room smells like pizza because my mom dropped the pizza in my room. So here's the thing that Friedman said on Sportsnet 960. I'm pretty sure that's what is that? Vancouver, I think.
Definitely one of the East.
He thinks Toronto's been pretty active on the phones lines today, looking for depth forwards, a la your boy Max, and maybe a defenseman. They're still looking at right-handed D, which
and that's
thanks.
we've been waiting since the off season. We've been at least since September. I don't know how many months that is now. Like, we've been bringing up Dumba since then. Like, it's been nonstop. So
and the fact that he's
something happens,
actually gettable, he's actually gettable is incredible.
The article that the Score just posted,
I saw it earlier today. The Who Says No.
What was it? The Who Says No? Yeah,
Kapanen,
Bracco in a second.
And wasn't it like Minnesota says no? What was it?
I'll pull it up here. Yeah. But I still think that's kind of light.
I do too.
I think they're giving up.
I agree. That's what I think Minnesota would say no.
I don't know the names. Okay, so it's Josh Goldsmith, Sean O'Leary, Matt Teague, and Brad Mirren. So Goldsmith says that the Leafs would say no.
I disagree.
Leary, Wegman all say the Wild say no, and then Teague says that they both say yes. So only one of the 5 actually thinks that both teams would actually think this is a beneficial trade for both parties. I don't think it would happen. I think
Wild
we're
say
gonna
no.
get into it. I think the Wild say no, and that's why 3 of the 5 of them did too.
But then again, like,
I think what everybody else is gone for.
I think it's something around there. Yeah, well, Dylan DeMello was the best guy that was probably traded, and he went for the least.
Right?
And you see Dylan DeMello go for a third, and you're like, could the Leafs not have done that? Because you're clearly talking to Ottawa if you're talking about this Max guy. Yeah. Max Verano.
I feel like they definitely would have made them overpay if they did want him, especially.
Well, a third and a fourth? Oh no!
No, maybe a second. Everybody else that's gone, every single defenseman that's gone so far has
But
gone
they
for a second.
said there was someone was saying that there was no way he was gonna go for a second, that no one was gonna give up a second. So it makes you think like I am 99% sure Dubas is talking to these people
Well, that's the
because
thing.
I think it was Mike Stevens again on his Live Laugh Lease podcast. He was basically like, the one thing that we know about Dubas is like when something goes wrong, he wants to fix it like right away. So
We saw
like
that
we
with the
saw with
Camden
Jack
trade.
Campbell. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um
I did want to bring up. I know we have the trades logged here, but
Yeah.
just in terms of the return for all these defensemen, like Martinez was multiple seconds, DeMello
yeah.
was a third, Green was a second, Dylan was a second,
Second and
Scandella was multiple,
Dylan was a second and a third, or second and a fourth. It was,
second and a conditional pick in
but I think it's
2021.
third all like
Yeah,
automatically.
like my point is, if you're Anaheim, if you're Minnesota, you're licking your chops right now, saying, "Well, hey, our guys have term."
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't see any of Dunbar or Manson going for anything less than a first, which is why I see that, you know, who says no thing. And I'm like, well, if they're not even giving up a first,
No,
and
you're
they're
right.
giving up Kapanen and they're giving up Bracco, I
It's got to
wouldn't
be a
see.
conditional second that turns into a first if you win a
Yeah.
playoff round or something.
But even
Something
then, the
like
Leafs don't have the first,
Well, what I
right?
mean
They
is,
gave it up. It would have
so
to be
no,
2021.
20. That's what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
The conditional on that. Uh, we could have the conversation on the Leafs. If they were sellers. I saw earlier today that I think it was Pierre LeBrun basically said that Barry would get a second and a prospect. He wouldn't even get a first.
At this point, it's basically the market, right? The market's been set where you get a second plus. Nobody's
Yep.
gone that far in terms of bringing anything more than a first back for one of their top four defensemen,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think, I mean, especially with him being on an expiring deal, it's very team friendly because of the retention from Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, on an expiring deal like that, yeah, I can't see him being worth more than a second plus, like what you said. Who else would they be interested in giving up at that point? If hypothetically, if they were sellers, would they end up moving Muzzin, you think?
I don't think that they would move Muzzin just because they basically have that contract hammered out where it's 4 years and what 5.5,
5.5.
five and
Yeah.
a half, which because they're front loading it, it's still 3 years in my opinion. Because
Okay.
if in the fourth year he's gonna probably be owed next to nothing after July 1st. So if he's garbage, I'm sure they have some sort of agreement where they're like, you need to waive your no trade or no move clause
Yeah.
if we need the cap space.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that he agreed with that. So
Yeah.
I'm looking up this Verano guy. He's appeared in 4 games for the Senators this season after recording 2 goals and 2 assists in 12 games with Ottawa in 2018-19. He also skated 33 games with Belleville in 2020, recording 10 points. Prior to signing with the Senators, Max skated in 130 games with Princeton Tigers, recording 52 goals and 92 assists, which ranks 4th all time in history. He was a Hobie Baker nominee for 2 years. What the fuck? This he's another Kenny Agostino, like first liner AHL guy. Like, I don't know.
I mean,
It's not like they're not talking to people. That's what it
well,
tells.
yeah. I mean, my question is, I mean, do they not have enough of these kind of players? You know, Bracco's never seen the Leafs lineup, despite him being the top prospect, and they're making trades for, you know, Verano, and I doubt he'll see the lineup either, right? Like they've got guys lining up. They had Marchment, they just flipped them. They have Bracco, he's barely played. They've got Engvall,
I think he's on like a personal leave.
Who's that?
Bracco. That's what I was reading.
Oh.
Well, they traded one of the guys that could have come up, Darren Archibald. They traded him to the Sens also to acquire Trent Bork, a defenseman.
So he just made another deal.
Yeah, but I think he's on an AHL contract. It's the Marlies that tweeted this out, so whatever. He's
mean, hey,
21. He's 21, 6'2", D-man. Played for the Brampton Beasts this year and the center, so it's definitely an AHL move. Yeah, I don't know. Would they sell any of the wing? Like, you could argue that making a Dumba move is a win now and win long term move. Same with
because he's got term.
Yeah.
I mean, would they look to move one of Kapanen, Janssen? I know Janssen's injured now, so he wouldn't really benefit a team, but Kapanen would definitely be one that tops my list in terms of movable players.
Oh, is he even good right now? Is Kapanen even good?
In my opinion, he hasn't been playing well. No. Like, as a top 9 guy, he's basically your 8th or 9th guy, and he hasn't
right now
much to show.
He's got top 6 potential.
Yeah,
I think on a good team he could be a second line winger.
Yeah, for sure.
He won't be on
playing,
this team.
in my opinion. Yeah, he's been playing as their 8th or 9th best forward, and he's got maybe one goal, the OT winner, to show for it this past week.
Going back to like guys the Leafs could get. I think another position that they should hammer out is, can they flip one of these wingers for a center?
One of which wingers? The $3 million guys?
Yeah. The Kerfoot, Janssen, Kapanen.
Yeah, for
or even
center?
Or even Cody Ceci, you're traded to San Jose for Joe Thornton, and San Jose is doing us a solid by letting Joe Thornton play for a contending team. I don't know. Like, I
know that was a thing.
Yeah, that they'll if
let him go.
Joe Thornton wants it, yeah. And if it's that kind of situation, I don't think that like San Jose is not trading him to get assets. In my opinion, it's you're doing
it's more for everything he's done for that organization. Okay, here's a shot to go and get the cup.
Exactly. So like it would be like a conditional 6th or 7th. I think that's better than what you have right now as your third line center.
Not as mobile as he once was, but he's definitely a better playmaker than anybody they got in their bottom 6. Like, he's still
Jason Spezza wants a word. No, I'm just kidding.
Spezza's more of the skater, but if we're gonna compare Thornton and Spezza, I mean, Thornton's got the playmaking ability. Spezza's still got the skating.
Joe Thornton's still playing first line center on the San Jose Sharks right now.
Hence why they are not doing well this year.
Awful. Bad. Very, very bad. Would San Jose move a Timo Meier? Timo Meier for Alex Kerfoot?
He's more of a winger, though, is he not?
No, he is a winger, but like the Leafs could use a left winger. You know,
I guess. I mean, Hyman's been playing left wing for the last while.
Well, I mean, who's the second line left wing? If you want to make it a bigger trade, if you want to make it a bigger trade, like, I not that there's anything out there, but you know, just drop in names. Scott Wheeler, who's the Athletics prospect guy, he's like Max Verano's AHL depth. That's what he is. He's a decent offensive skill set, and he can make plays as a passer more than a scorer. He's not the kind of same acquisition as Malgin. One steps into the NHL lineup, the other is a lottery ball. So we just wasted all that time.
Oh, wow.
Okay, let's talk about some of the defensemen. So Martinez gets traded to the Vegas Golden Knights.
Yeah,
I wasn't a big Martinez guy, even though he has an extra year on his deal. Like, out of all the guys, if we were to rank the deals, I think Scandella is the worst deal, and then Andy Green, and then it's Martinez. Like, Andy Green and Scandella.
Yeah.
Martinez, I don't know if he's that good. And he for the biggest acquisition cost, and then DeMello is probably the best and
In
Dylan be
terms
the
of
second
what are you
best.
getting bang for buck, I think
Yeah,
DeMelo's the
the best. Yep.
you only gave up a third,
Yeah,
and he's
no
probably
doubt.
side based on that value.
And I think
Yeah,
that's a good move for Winnipeg because they need defensemen bad.
he's a lefty,
Since
no? Because I know that they've got, or
no,
is
he's
he
a
a
righty.
righty?
He's a righty. Pretty sure.
Oh,
Dylan DeMello. Like 90% sure he's
oh,
a right-handed
Brendan
man.
Dillon, I think, is the right-hander, or else I'm just stupid.
No, they're both right-handed.
Oh,
Or is Dylan left-handed?
Brendan Dillon, I'm pretty sure is right-handed.
Right, so they're both right-handed. So yeah, like I think that fair acquisition cost for both.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Cavs are going to be such a dirty team because you have Gudis and Dylan on the same team. Dylan shoots left, but he can play the right, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like that's just going to be a third pair of Gudis and Dylan's going to wreck shit. Like they're just going to be like, go hit Crosby if you can catch him. And
For real.
the one thing we didn't talk about was the potential. Pierre LeBrun saying the Leafs in Toronto have discussed Rasmus Ristolainen.
Yep, that was
said
another
it would
one.
be an off-season deal. Are we sure it was Rasmus Ristolainen? That's like a tongue twister. If you try to say it like not Rasmus Ristolainen.
Rasmus Ristolainen, and then
Yeah. Are we sure it's Ristolainen that they were talking about? Because like you can convince me it was Colin Miller. You can convince me it was Brandon Montour. That all
they've
three
got
play
enough right-handed defensemen.
Yeah,
that
they got
would
Montour
definitely be
playing
an
on the
upgrade.
first pair that's right-handed, but he's playing the left side. Like,
He actually put up a couple points yesterday. Yeah, I mean, he hasn't been playing all that well since he moved to Buffalo, but I mean, he's still
he
an
was a
upgrade
guy
in
that
my books.
he was a guy that Leafs talked about getting for the longest time.
Yep.
Like during last season when he was actually on the block. So I don't know. Like, would it be the worst thing? His number, both their numbers are god awful, but you know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like. I was talking with Brand about this earlier. Let me try to pull up the conversation. The only good statistic that Ristolainen basically has is that his ice time. He plays a lot of ice time. That's it.
Yeah.
Like, but then here's my quote to Brant. So the tweet was Pierre LeBrun says Toronto discuss Rasmus Ristolainen, but it would need to be an off-season deal. I'm like, Risto is the biggest cock tease of a defenseman. Physically looks the part, but he has no substance to his game whatsoever.
Like, he's a big boy, is he not?
He's 6'4", yeah.
Yeah, like for his size, he's a little bit skinnier in build. Like he doesn't play like his size. So yeah, like I get where you're coming from. Definitely.
But you see 6'4", and you're like, man,
yeah.
If you get with our skating coaches, so I was like, if you get with the skating coaches, could it potentially be good? It's like, he's just bad. So like, is he just name brand Cody Ceci? Possibly.
Yeah.
Is there a significant difference? I said, well, if you're giving up Ceci and like, I don't know, Jeremy Bracco, like, how high is the acquisition cost? I think that matters.
Yeah.
If you're acquiring a guy like Ristolainen. If it's low, fuck it. Let's lottery ticket. Like if it hits, it's a high level player.
Low risk, high yeah, it's all dependent. Like I think regardless of how much you give up, there's definitely high reward to him. It's just it all depends on how much you're giving up in order to get him, which will make that reward that much better or worse. Right?
Yep. 100%. Then you had the other deals over the past couple of days. The Tyler Toffoli deal was like that one made no sense to me because they gave up Tyler Madden, right? Tyler Madden, I don't know, and a first round pick for Tyler Toffoli, who Toffoli for the last 3 years the Kings have been trying to get rid of this guy.
Yeah, they've been shopping him forever.
And it was always weird to me because Toffoli was the guy that they would send to those NHL. You know how they do those on the NHL YouTube? They get all the guys for the media day and they do all these videos and like interactive stuff. Toffoli was always the guy that they would send. And I'm like, well, Toffoli's just not been good, but people think that he is. And then somehow they swindle Vancouver to give them a first round pick. What? How?
I think it's I forget who's the GM there
Or
right
wait,
now.
no. They didn't give up the first round pick. I'm
It
thinking
was a
of
second, was it not?
no, because Tampa used the first round pick that they got from Vancouver for JT Miller.
Correct.
But it was probably a second round pick or something.
I think it was a second for Toffoli. But regardless, I think Jim Benning's basically he sees the group that they have. It's a young team, right? It's to me, it's like a Leafs of when they played Washington, where you got Pedersen. I know Besser's out now, but like you have Besser, you have Quinn Hughes. They're all young players. Let them play, and basically they're just giving them Toffoli to play with in place of Besser to go and make a run for the playoffs.
My point was basically like, good on the Kings, I guess. They got a legitimate prospect in Madden and then a second round pick for a guy that had virtually no value and you were basically trying to get rid of.
Yeah, for the longest.
Good on you. And then you look at the Blake Coleman trade where what was it? Nolan Foote and a first round pick that they got from
the JT Miller deal. Yeah.
The asset, like the JT Miller trade in the offseason was such a bad trade from the standpoint of who saw him as an asset that Tampa had. Tampa needed to get rid of cap space, and Vancouver was like, "Oh, we like him. We would give up a first round pick for him," and he's absolutely been worth it this year. But the problem was,
you probably didn't have to give up that much.
No,
to get him because it was doing Tampa more of a favor.
Exactly, and Tampa geniusly traded what was Nolan Foote their first round pick last year, also
29 first round pick. I forget which year though. Yeah, he was at the end.
Cal, right?
Yeah.
So Nolan Foote was a first rounder last year, a late first rounder, and then Cal they drafted 2 years before.
Yeah,
I want to say. So they traded basically 2 first round picks for Blake Coleman. Coleman, who's 1 point something million this and next year, and me and Brent were talking about him earlier in the year. And we were up at like 4 in the morning, being like, who could the Leafs get? And then I was like, oh, Blake Coleman, because low cap hit, high hits. He satisfies he's analytically a genius. He satisfies all the crowds. And then Tampa makes a move for him.
Yeah.
It's a great move by Tampa.
He's a very underrated player, that's for sure. Like, I don't know too much about him just because like I don't watch New Jersey, but like he's definitely an all-around player, right? Like I see him getting shorthanded assists, shorthanded points like all the time. Like he could do a lot on the ice, and I think that's gonna what is the biggest part for me in terms of what Tampa's getting back. Like they've already got enough players in the top 6, but like you add up a guy like him and it's dangerous.
Blake Coleman plays the way that Leafs fans want Kapanen to play, like the upside of that. I think that's completely fair. 20 plus goals, you play the PK, and you hit.
Mm-hmm.
Same with Janssen, basically.
And yet they make double the amount of money.
Yeah. And Tampa got the guy.
Yep.
And Cirelli's been incredible this year. Like, fucking Tampa, they fucking groomed Braden Foote. They created Braden Point. And then Cirelli is now like on a level that like Point was last year. Maybe not that high, but like he's a significant player.
It's crazy how he was basically a 4th-line center, 3rd-line center. Now he's worked his way into the top 6, and he's looked really dangerous this year.
Yep, he's got as many points as he did last year.
Yeah,
in 58 games instead of 82. Sounds pretty good for me from a 3rd-round pick.
Pride of Woodbridge, Ontario.
Etobicoke. Relax.
Hold on.
It says that on Hockey DB.
Wikipedia says he was born in Woodbridge, Vaughan, Ontario.
All right, relax.
I'm pretty sure he's definitely like down the street for me. I just don't know.
I'm just like throwing out names here. 3rd-line center for the Leafs, Andreas Athanasiou. Would the Red Wings make a move with Toronto?
I don't know if they move him to Toronto, but I could see them moving him.
No, I think that they're gonna move him. I think it makes all the sense to move him because what he's an RFA like last year RFA this year.
Yeah. Well,
Like
he's another one I think with Darren Ferris, right? So he held out a little bit last year, so I'm sure that
your
he.
volume went way down, and
Can you hear me now?
yeah, but it's just way lower than it was just now. It's so weird. I don't know.
Let me check my mic settings. No, just to that point, like I know he's another one under Darren Ferris, and I mean he held out last year for a little bit. And I know that they've clients of his haven't been afraid to do so, and
Yep.
I mean, hey, he's got a lot of speed, like another Woodbridge kid. I love them, so I'm biased towards them. Uh, he was another one on the who says no thing on the score. Like they were saying Edmonton, and I mean, he'd be a nice pickup for any team. He's got the speed. He's got great finish. I mean, I think he'd be a solid player for the Leafs to try and go after. But do I see them doing it to a division rival? Probably not.
Yeah. One sec. You're still low. Let me try talking now. How about
How about now?
that? It's the same, really. Let me just bump you up. Let me plug your mic in and out. I don't know. Maybe it's my thing. I don't. Who knows? Uh,
Okay, I just refreshed it. How am I now?
yeah, that's good. Yeah. Uh, Tampa's just a fucking wagon. Like, if they don't like, listen to this top nine. There's only one player I really wouldn't want to play in my top nine, and that's Alex Kalorin. But first line they have right now: Stamkos, Point, Kucherov. Like what?
Yep.
Second line of Palat, Sorelli, Kalorin. Third line of Coleman, Johnson, Yanni Gord. And then a fourth line of Patrick Maroon, Paquette, and Carter Verhage. And they've turned Kevin Shattenkirk into a like.
They've resurrected him
If
big
you
time.
put Tyson Barrie on Tampa Bay, he's Tyson Barrie, and he is not the black hole that he is. Because in a way, Tampa has turned Shattenkirk, who's basically in Shattenkirk's prime, like that year when he got traded to Washington. Like I
Yep.
would consider that the high point. Uh, that's basically Tyson Barrie in a nutshell. Like, and the fact that Shattenkirk sucked since and has now turned into a good player again.
Yep.
I just I don't think that Barrie is a bad player, but I think in this system he's a bad fit.
No, I couldn't agree more. Like if you look at it, he was not good at all on the Rangers, Shattenkirk. He comes to Tampa and they resurrect him. Like they just have this unique ability to get players. Like even Braden Coburn, they had Dan Girardi at one point. Like they've got these guys and they get these veteran players and all of a sudden they're playing well. They're in their top five,
Yeah.
their top four, and they're playing valuable minutes. They're playing good hockey, and it's no surprise that they're always there in the running. They're a division leader. Like it's crazy. Like management there, even since Iserman was there, like the moves they made, they've been spot on with a lot of stuff. Like goes
No,
back as
for
far as
sure.
the Jonathan Drouin trade. Like they've just hit gold on a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't surprise me anymore.
And Sergachev's turned into a legit top four D man, and
Hmm.
he's been really good this year. Um, Tampa's like, is it a good thing if the Leafs make the playoffs?
Is it a good thing? Yeah, it's always a good thing if you're
Is it
competing in playoffs.
like what's the point?
Now, if you're gonna say, is it better in terms of a learning experience that they go through this, that they don't have you know,
Mm-hmm.
they they have the mentality that they can play like shit and they can still make the playoffs. I think it's more valuable to them if they miss out. Yeah, because they'll learn more from it if them playing like the way they are, and now all of a sudden they miss out. Being the team that they've expected to be, like the top three in the division every year. And now all of a sudden, the one year that they don't play well enough, they actually
Yep.
get penalized for it and they don't make playoffs. I mean, yeah, it'll be a great learning experience for them.
Yeah, like I heard the argument where it's basically, what's the point of getting the playoffs if you're just gonna get your doors fucking blown in by Boston or Tampa?
Hmm. Well, even if you get in as a wild card and you're playing whatever, a Washington or a Pittsburgh, if
Yep.
yesterday's game was anything of a example of what we'd see, sell it off, sell whatever pieces you could get right now, and keep the core intact.
Exactly.
Right?
Like I think people forget Tampa before last year. They traded away. Fuck. Well, they missed the playoffs, right? And that's when they got. Fuck. Who'd they draft in the top 10? I don't know. I can't remember the time that they missed the playoffs. Fuck me. But it was like they made it deep in the conference. Was it? Did they make the cup finals or was it the conference finals? And then the next year they missed the playoffs.
Finals in 2015 when they lost to the Hawks. That
So
was
then,
when we first came out with the triplets.
so 2016 they missed, I think.
I'm gonna double check that now.
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Season history.
They had 94 points. They finished 5th in the Atlantic. Yeah. Then they missed. I assume they missed the playoffs with only 94. Yeah.
Was that not the year they picked Braden Point?
But Point went in the second round, didn't he? I'm trying to think who they picked in the first round, and then it ended up working for them. Tampa Bay draft. Nolan Foot. Nope, that's not the year. 2018. Callan Foot when he went 14th.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, but my point is like they've missed the playoffs before. That was the entire point. Was the fact that they could make it to where they would have the 27th pick in the draft in 2016, and then the next year they're out of the playoffs completely. Yeah. It's not out of the question that the Leafs can just have a dog shit year this year, and then be right back in it the next year.
Yeah.
Is that enough Leafs talk? Hopefully they make a move right now. And then
yeah, for real.
I know. It's kicking the nuts. So tell me about the new CBA proposal with the NFL and the playoff structure.
Yeah, so that's the whole CBA thing has been going on this week. They're saying that they're going to come to terms or try and figure things out by the end of the week.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the highlight of this it's been within the last hour or two, was the whole idea of a rearrange in the playoff format. Mm-hmm. So instead of the traditional 2 buys per conference, 6 total, know, the whole 3v6.
3v6, 4v5, yeah.
It'd be the 1 buy spot per conference, and then I'm guessing a 2v7, 3v5 or 3v6, 4v5.
Oh, so they add a playoff team.
They add a playoff spot. The 3 teams then go into the next round with that 4th team that got the bye, and then from there you have a bracket. Which, I mean, I'm not opposed to. I think it incentivizes, winning, right? As opposed to, we already have the bye. We don't need to. We could take the last game of the season off. And I know in a sport like football where, you're playing once a week, but it's an all-out brawl, those weeks off, especially, week 16, week 17, they're ever important. They're very valuable. But, I mean, the only bad part about it is, like,
is it too much football? Because okay, I think it's literally perfect, those wild card weekend and then divisional round weekend, when you have 4 games all weekend that you're gonna watch, right? 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday, 1 at 1, like 1, and then
like two per, and then whatever, and then you're basically stretching it to a 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 9 o'clock on a wild card weekend. That'd be jam packed. I mean, in terms of the average football fan getting their fix, it'd be entertaining, but I mean,
because then it'd be 3-3.
Yeah, which is nuts.
Yeah. Question on your mic: is there a gain thing?
No, I have.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
A 1, 2, 3 setting.
Whatever that one is. Oh wait, no, not that one.
How about now?
Yeah, that's good. Perfect.
Okay. Never changed that before in my life, but here we go.
It sounds significantly better than what it was. It was weird. It was just like one time it just switched, and then it was like way lower. Like
Boop.
I couldn't hear you. So I think it's a lot,
In
but
terms of like adding that extra game on each conference, it's a lot in terms of how much football you're getting teams to play. You're not netting any games, you're not adding any games per se in terms of weeks. Like you're not extending the schedule in any way because it's all being jammed into that 1 week, right? The one thing I have is that, if a team that has a really shit division where they're basically getting
8-8.
6 free wins and you're basically gifting them a bye spot. That's the only, like, if New
The
England
Patriots.
was that, that's the one thing I have against it, where it's like,
Yeah.
if you're the New England Patriots, where you get the Bills twice when they were shit, the Jets and the Dolphins all when they were complete trash,
Mm-hmm.
only one team is benefiting from that. And I think that second spot is ever valuable for the team that's not the beneficiary of that. Do we see it as much now? I think there's a lot more parity in terms of that division, but there are still, the NFC East was completely atrocious,
So
right?
here's the thing. Schefter said also more on the
Okay.
transformational CBA process proposal now on the table. As a part of the new deal, players would go from 47% share in revenue to 48% on 16 games, and then 48.5%, so 0.5% if they go to 17 games. And that shifts $5 billion of revenue to the player's side.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know how, like it. All I
That
know is five
that's if
billion is a
they were to
lot of
play a
money.
17th game.
I don't know if it's whether or not the just shifting of like having that extra playoff game gets them $5 billion in revenue. Like, is it the totality of? So under the new proposal, the playoff field would expand to 7 teams, while the regular season would be increased to 17 games per team, and the preseason shortened to 3 games. So they're basically not adding any games.
They're
They're
just
taking away
making
one
they're
preseason to
making
add. Yeah,
one more meaningful game.
and they create $5 billion more of revenue. Seems good to me.
I mean, I'm not opposed to that.
Yeah. Because you got to consider like that playoff game creates a massive amount of revenue, and then just having an extra regular season game for each team, that's
That's
significant
huge.
amounts of money also in terms of like just the television ratings.
Yeah, for
uh
sure.
you're transferring a shitty preseason game into a regular season game. That's significant. So you're basically gaining, I want to say playoff games counts for like 2 regular season games and
For
then a
real.
regular season game. So it's like you're adding 3 games from only shifting like one. It's
Yeah.
impressive. And it would take place this season if it's
Yeah,
the CBA is approved in the
that's the
coming week.
huge part about it. It would become an immediate change, right?
Yeah, that's crazy. Um, Drew Brees said he's coming back this year.
Yeah, that was another thing. And
Yeah.
in response to that, Taysom Hill's like, "Yeah, well, I'm not in a rush to leave."
Yeah. Except, didn't he come out earlier this week? And he's like, I want to play. Like,
He's the one that was saying, if I'm not going to get the chance to play quarterback, I have no problem going elsewhere. And now that Drew Brees just went ahead and said, "Well, I'm coming back," and he's like, "Well, I'm not in any rush. Like, I mean, playing under Drew Brees is whatever, an honor."
Taysom Hill is a bit of a joke in a sense. His whole story is he couldn't stay healthy in college at all, like at all. He was in college for, I want to say, 5 or 6 seasons, because like it would be 6 seasons. I'm pretty sure he got a medical red shirt. So like, and like, I'm gonna pull up how many actual games he played in college. Taysom Hill college. The
He's also
big thing
so
is like
versatile. That's the thing.
he played okay. He was at Brigham Young from 2012 to 2016, so 5 years. Um,
Okay.
he played 6 games as a freshman, 13 as a sophomore, 5 as a junior, 1 as a senior, and then as a redshirt senior, he played 12 games. He's never been healthy, and I'm sure it'd be much the same if
He
he
got
would have
full
to be a
workload.
starter. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I mean, he's a fun player to watch. Like
he's a gadget
he
player.
he comes in his bits. Like he's a use him as you need him kind of player. Like he's in special teams. He's You know, you mix
It's a
him.
role that I want to see Jalen Hurts be in the NFL. To be honest, like I think that's the perfect role. Mel Kiper stole that from me.
Yeah, like they're
I said
few
it
and far
first.
between. Like you don't see many players like that where they, you know, you can line him up as a quarterback, you can line him up as a running back, you can line him up as a receiver. He plays in the special teams. Like he played fullback for a play. Like he does it all, and I think that's going to be the hardest part. Like if you were to try and transition his game into, you know, a starting quarterback, I don't know how that would translate
It
in terms
wouldn't,
of the
because you see
success.
teams want to play Teddy Bridgewater $30 million this year or
Yeah.
something crazy. Where I'm like, whoa. I like Teddy Bridgewater. I don't like him that much to pay him that
Mhm.
much money. Like I'd still rather pay Jameis Winston that money if I'm going to Teddy Bridgewater.
Oh, Jameis Winston
Hey, eye
he
surgery,
had surgery on his
LASIK.
eye.
Yep, yep.
Oh wow.
Going from 30-30 to 20-20. There is so many of those jokes. I was just like,
Oh
fuck
good
off.
lord.
Yeah.
I love me some Jameis Winston jokes. Like they're great.
I don't know. I think he's good for the sport because he's a fun guy to watch.
He's the butt of all jokes. He could play
Exactly.
well at
He's
times.
the new Eli Manning. It's gonna suck when Daniel Jones is just Jameis Winston in like a couple of years. No retort, eh? Because you're
Let's talk
scared of
basketball.
I don't know. The NBA All-Star like weekend was fucking awesome, except for Aaron Gordon absolutely getting hosed in the dunk contest. Like
I caught a
he
bit
did
of
something that
the
literally no one has done before. Dunk over a 7'5" guy, and he lost. I
yeah.
don't know. I just thought that was such a damper, but now I who gives a shit? Like whatever. The actual All-Star game itself was legitimately incredible because it felt like playoff intensity. I'm not quite finals intensity in the fourth quarter,
Mhm.
but like pretty goddamn close. It was just super fun to watch because you see all those guys out there and you're like, wow, it's the star of stars, and they're just going at it like
Mhm.
they want it bad. And like you see Lowry taking all the charges. Like I tweeted out, like, put this game on Kyle Lowry's like Hall of Fame tape, because like he just doesn't give a shit. He's a basketball
Yeah.
player, and like it's the All-Star game, but all these guys just wanted to play. And that's what made the game great. So basically was it the Elo? Um the Elo ending. That's what changed the whole thing. Where it's basically you set a number, and
Yeah.
whatever it is, it makes it a more dramatic finish because you have this set goal in mind.
Yeah.
And Nick Elam, he was on Zach Lowe's podcast. He was basically talking about it. It was like it was a resounding success. Um, and the thing that is spawning from this is like, what if basketball just changes and you set a target score and that's just what it is? Like it's completely possible. Like
Yeah.
I was just spitballing like with myself, and I was just like, what if you set the target number at 100 and was just like, okay, well, after 25 points, whatever team's leading, that's the end of the first quarter. 50
Okay.
points halftime, third quarter, 75, and then 100, the game's over. Now you would lose all the like it would be harder to compare eras because
Yeah.
there'd be no set time, but like I don't know, I think it, like, flow wise, I think it would work. It made the conversation of like they'll try this Elam ending in the G League and stuff, and that
Okay.
originally when it was explained, everyone was like, I don't know about this. It sounds like any of those other gimmicks. But now, like, with how everyone saw like that it's a legitimate competitive game,
Yeah.
they are really intrigued by this observation. And basically everyone shit on Adam Silver when he brought this idea up, like with the whole 24 points for Kobe and like
Mhm.
and that whole thing. Um, but then it makes you realize he's been a big proponent of like the midseason tournament.
Yeah.
So And that's an idea where I'm like, fuck that, that's stupid. But now how well that worked, I'm like,
Exactly.
I'm willing to give it a shot. Like, I don't see how it could be a complete failure.
Hmm.
Um, it was just an awesome All Star weekend. I've never seen the fourth quarter was incredible, but even the entire game, like, it was still intriguing
Yeah.
because every quarter had like a purpose where you had the two organizations next to each other, like the two charities that they were
Hmm.
playing for, and it was cool to see. Like, and then the third quarter ended up tied, and like Nick Nurse was calling a timeout with like 20 seconds left to drop a play to tie the game at the end of the third quarter, so that like, and they did, and then LeBron's team had a chance to win it. Like, it was just cool stuff to see, um, and the fact
Yeah.
that it was in an All Star game, it was wide open and
For
like
me,
there was a
like
lot of
I
dunks.
had,
What's up?
yeah, like I watched a bit of the Rising Stars challenge. Like the back end of that game was pretty entertaining in the sense that they were just nobody was playing defense, but like
No,
it was just a full out dunk competition, and they were allowing all the
that's what
youngsters to
that game
play and
turns
go.
into. Yeah,
Like I don't mind it for that, right? Like
no,
it's exposure for they
yeah,
Durant missed like 2 dunks, but I mean, hey, the effort is what
yeah.
counts at that point,
Zion missed his.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
like that one. I mean, I still chalk up those 2 minutes as very entertaining in terms of great quality content. I watched a little bit of the skills competition. Uh, Bam Adebayo comes out of nowhere. He was like a plus 1,000 to win the skills
Yeah,
competition, which is crazy
yeah.
that the big goes out and he wins it. Uh, who Buddy Hield comes with like a 27-point
The
performance. That
awesome
was
3-point
crazy.
competition also. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, and I also think like other teams or other leagues can go and adapt to the whole, bring in your specialists for that kind of event,
No, for
right?
sure.
Like
For like the hardest shot with the NHL.
the hardest
That's the
shot for
thing.
the NHL, like the whole fastest skater, who's faster than McDavid, like bring out the best skaters in the league and just make it a run for everybody's money. Like
Okay, here's
bring
the
out the
thing.
best.
Here's the thing. Here's a comparison with the why the NBA is just a better league than the NHL.
Hmm.
The NBA has an incredible product with the 3-point competition, right? Like, there was
Correct.
nothing wrong with
Yeah.
it. And then they add this Mountain Dew zone, and everyone's like, "What the fuck? Why change it?"
Oh,
Like,
that
it was a
was so
great part.
fun.
And then it turned out to be great by adding these like
Devin
these how
Booker
many
was hitting them like nothing.
these 12 extra points that are significantly different, and it made the competition way more fun.
Yeah.
Um, Comparison, the NHL with the shot accuracy, and you make it to the digital ones when they had the styrofoam ones, they had that set, and everyone
Yeah.
likes how they break. And then they changed it to the shot accuracy where it's like one will light up and you have to shoot at that one. Like, why
Yeah.
change it? You
No.
could have had it with the digital ones where it's like, but all of them light up. That's fine. But when they
Yeah.
either don't turn out, which like guys were hitting them in the All-Star in the
And it
NHL
wasn't
one, and it was
responsive.
exactly. And then when it was way
Yeah.
off, it would go off. And then but you had a great just switch back to the styrofoam, and I think that's what they're doing next year
Mhm.
because it's reliable and like the accuracy challenge is just like who can do it literally the fastest, and who cares if you have to pick up a bit of styrofoam? Just do it
Yeah.
extremely fast and let's keep it moving.
Yeah,
Like, I
for
like
real.
the idea with the NHL, what they did with the thing where the all the guys went up top and did like the dude perfect stuff. Like,
Oh,
that
like
was
the
fun.
shooting stars challenge or whatever it was?
Yeah, but the one problem was the one target that everyone was going for. It was like, oh, that's not a point if you hit it off the back of this, but it is if you get it straight on. Like, that was the worst part. But I think that's a good idea regardless. I don't know. Um, I thought it was extremely successful. NBA also,
Yeah,
like,
for
the
real.
NBA just does it way better than any other
Mhm.
league does. Uh,
Like, the
I would say
reaction worldwide, like, everybody, like, you
everyone.
name it, they were saying such high praise, like, all in all, in the weekend
Yeah,
it was phenomenal. Like, I didn't catch much of the game itself, but, like, I
watch the
watched
highlights. It's great.
highlights. But, yeah, like, Lowry's taking charges, there was
Mhm.
intensity all around, and I think that's what every single All-Star game in every other league lacks. It's
Yeah,
the intensity, and I know nobody's trying to get hurt, but at the end
but
of the
that
day,
doesn't mean they.
it's still you're just trying to put on a show. Like, I know
Yeah.
you're the best of the best, and you're there, you're a big name. Just being there is what most people are mostly concerned about, but, like, you play your full game, and it's just that much more entertaining.
And here's the thing. Here's two fixes. One for the NBA, one for the NHL. The one for the NHL is basically even though everyone loves 3-on-3, I don't know if it's right for the All-Star game. Just
Mhm.
because like just go back to East versus West and it's one game and then have the women's game like during the halftime of the game. Like it's not actual hockey that you're watching. That
Yeah,
was the problem with like with in my opinion. I just don't think it doesn't make sense that you're showcasing your game but it's not actually your game.
that's not the game. It's 5 minutes of the game if you get there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
No,
It
I'm
has
with that 100%, especially in the terms of you're already like there's so much scrutiny over the selection of players for the
yeah.
NHL, and having a full roster would solve that where you're not solely focused on trying to make sure every team is represented, but making sure that the best possible players are there, right? Like it's, you know, Tyler Bertuzzi was there because he had to
Mhm.
represent Detroit, and
You
uh,
don't need that as like you disvalued the meaning of
the
being an
meaning of
all-star.
being an all-star,
Yeah.
right? To the point where, you know, Crosby's a whatever time all-star and Ovechkin's a whatever time
Yeah.
all-star, right? Like Ovechkin's declining it at this point because, he's been there, he's done that, and he knows what's coming. Like if you made it what it should be, like the older days where, to be an all-star, you could carry that onto your uh Hall of Fame resume, right? Like he was an X-time
Yep.
all-star.
Mhm.
Like John Scott being an all-star that same year as
One-time all-star,
everybody
put him in
else.
the Hall of Fame.
That's what I mean. Like
Yeah.
it discredits everybody else who is there
Mhm.
that deserves to be there, right? Like Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, and everybody who was there. I know Marner got voted in, right?
Mhm.
And that was based on a popularity contest rather than him being the best possible player because Marchand didn't even get selected for the last man in. It was Bergeron,
Yep.
right? So even though one of the top 5 players at the time in terms of points didn't get selected and not even for the voting, right? Like how can you define what it truly is to be an all-star? And that's to me the NHL has the biggest one to fix in terms of fixing the all-star.
Agreed. And then so the one fix with the NBA one was everyone didn't like that the fact that it ended on a free throw, but the
Yeah.
one change is basically I saw that when it's a 1-point game, you can basically change the rules to where if a guy's at the free throw line, it subtracts from the opposing team's score. So Anthony Davis in that situation, the team Giannis was down 3 or 4. So then it would go down to 5 with the one made three free throw. Like they would lose points so that it would have to end on a bucket.
No, I
Just
agree. Like it's an easy workaround for the first time. Like it was still a major success for the NBA, like
incredible.
100%. Like, and I think, yeah, like I know a lot of people were upset by the fact that it did end on a free throw, but yeah, like you said, like there are definitely ways around that,
Yep.
and it's far and above the best All Star weekend we've seen in a long, long time. And I mean, for that to be the only problem with it, that at least I think I've seen for me personally, like I mean, yeah, that's still a huge success, and it's great for the game. It's great for leagues world around the world to try and replicate.
Yep. Um, did you see what the Cavs did?
I read something about the Cavs. If you bring it up, I will definitely remember now.
Well, just basically they're firing John Beeline after hiring him from Michigan this past year. He signed a 5-year deal and they're firing him by the All-Star break. They basically have had 5 coaches in the last like 4 years or something.
He's resigning to be
Yeah,
reassigned on a different role within the organization.
I don't
That's
know.
weird.
No, they're he's parting ways. He just doesn't want to do anymore because his team hates him. It's just a
That's one
crazy
way
ass
of putting it.
situation. It's a crazy ass situation. Um, all right, let's finish with the Astros. You got LeBron tweeting about them,
Yeah.
basically being like, "Fuck that! I'm not
Effing
letting anyone take
atrocious.
it
Oh,
from me."
that's I'd be effing irate, I think he said.
Yeah, which sure, absolutely. You got
And
Manfred calling the World Series a piece of metal, like the commissioner's trophy a piece of metal. You got Manfred fucking putting his like hand in his mouth, talking like He
Yeah.
comes out to do a press conference last week, and then he did one yesterday. Like, why? What are you doing? Damage control, buddy. Like, stop. Be like the Astros players now and shut the fuck up. Like both of you. You
Mhm.
guys just make everything worse. And I saw that basically the league couldn't suspend the Astros players because um, the players union would fight it, and there was no way that baseball would win. Uh,
Strip them of the
okay,
title.
that's the only thing. Exactly, that's the only thing that you can do. And then my other point that I wanted to make was, I don't think that there's a way in hell that you can elect any of these guys to the Hall of Fame. The hitters, like the pitchers, Verlander, fuck it, whatever. I don't give a fuck.
Well, the
Um,
pitchers.
but the hitters, like in their right mind, how do you elect them and not elect someone that took steroids? Like they're both performance enhancing.
Yeah.
They're both not allowed in the game, but you'll let one pass and the other not. Like
Yeah.
I think it's the exact same thing. You see guys pop today for PEDs. I think it was Pablo Reyes of the Pirates who got an 80-game suspension, but none of the Astros got anything. Like it's just the
It's
biggest joke. But it's the
hypocritical
one
in my
time that we've
opinion.
actually been talking about baseball in the 2 years, like the second year of the podcast. We just don't talk baseball because it's irrelevant.
Mm-hmm. Like for me, like yeah, it's hypocritical in the sense that you make such a big case about trying to make sure steroids is out of the game, but this is a completely different version of performance enhancing play, right? They're basically just gonna stay mum on it, and he's going off and mouthing saying that it's just a piece of metal. You're
Mhm.
discrediting everything that the players you have employed under you, the owner, commissioner, whatever you call them of the MLB, they go out and play for the World Series, and he's discrediting everything that they're going out and playing for. It doesn't make too much sense to me. That and just the reaction of everybody, it has me on the floor. Mike
Yep.
Trout, oh, it'd be crazy. It'd be crazy funny to see what I would do
Yeah.
if I knew what pitches were coming. Giancarlo
Stanton,
Stanton goes out and he says, I'd have
I
hit 80 home runs. 80 home runs if I knew what was coming.
well,
Like
he hit
it,
54 that year or something and won the
for real
MVP.
though, like
Yeah, it's a
it's it's
it's a
just
joke.
it's so bad to see that they're not making any sort of good on this. Like as a fan of soccer, you see this all the time. Like Manchester City within the last week or so, they got a huge ban,
Mhm.
2 years Champions League because they went out and they spent more than what they were bringing in, and they covered it up saying that it was all under like uh partnership revenue under like
Oh, you can't just
Emirates
take the hit.
Air.
Like you can't take the negative hit of like you spent more than that.
No, it's under the UEFA rules. It's financial allowed to go and spend hundreds of millions of dollars if you're only bringing in X amount. And most teams do bring
Got
in
you.
a fair amount, right? But if you're going out
Yeah.
and spending $250 million on Neymar
Yeah.
and you're only bringing in $100 million in revenue,
Mhm.
where's that money coming from? It's coming out of the
Oh,
owner's
so
pockets. A lot of
exactly.
owners are rich and
Okay,
can
so
go
they
out
don't
and do
want.
that.
Okay, got you.
It's to
Yeah.
try and balance out the play and make
Okay.
it fair for everybody as best as they possibly can within,
It's
there's
basically
no
what the
cap.
NHL is doing, which is stupid also, but
Yeah.
like
Like
let the people pay what they like. I'm on the side of let the people play what they want. Whatever. If you got to take the hit, you take
yeah.
the hit. But it's the same thing with college football. You see, if people are penalized, like you saw after the Jerry Sandusky thing with Penn State, they got handed the death
Yeah.
penalty basically, where they're not eligible for a bowl game. You see
Mhm.
that with like USC, where Reggie Bush gave up his Heisman, and they did they strip them
The
of
IOC.
the title from last year. But they
The
exactly,
IOC all the time.
yeah,
Russia doping. It's not even as if they give the gold medal to the other person. They just strip the title of the person who did it unfairly, which is, I think, the biggest part about it. It's not as if you're saying, hey, well, the Dodgers are now the World Series champions. No, there's no winner that year. Sorry.
yeah.
Like, they did it under uh, unfair means, and it's a complete, it's a joke to
Yeah, the commissioner is
as a
basically
we've
like, I don't want. Oh, oh,
oh, I think you went.
go
I
on
can't hear
about
you.
Juventus. Go on about Juventus.
Oh, I was just saying, like, we've had titles stripped away from us because of cheating. Like it's across all leagues in soccer that they go out and they'll strip titles from teams, and it's not as if they give the win to another team. It's just you don't get credit for that year, and I think that could go into this kind of situation.
No, absolutely. Like, and that's the thing. Baseball doesn't want to set that precedent, but
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion, I don't understand how Manfred's job isn't on the line. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I would go to the all 30 owners and be like, "Hey, let's put it to a vote. If you guys want to set that precedent of you can be stripped from titles if you cheat, then we will strip them of the title. Like, set that precedent, because if not, I don't understand if you're one of the other 29 owners how you could
Yeah.
legitimately like the guy that's in charge of your sport.
I think it's brutal, even the sense that they haven't done anything to make good for the rest of the teams. Like they're basically giving full immunity to these players is the worst thing, in my opinion, that they could be doing, because
It's a
now
joke.
it's forcing it into the hands of the players and the owners that they
Yep.
have something out to prove to them to make it good for themselves.
Yeah, you got like
And
Nick Markakis saying that they need to pay, basically.
yeah,
That they'll
like they've
get the,
set the over under at like 85 total hit batters this year. Like it's insane. Like it's gonna
Mhm,
cause mayhem. And
mhm.
what's Manfred gonna do? He's
You're gonna
gonna go out
suspend the
and
players for hitting them?
he's gonna
Like, get the
suspend
fuck out of
hit
here.
players for hitting them. Like it's
Yeah,
completely hypocritical.
stupid.
You're
Um,
gonna protect the
the
culprit.
cheaters. Yeah, it's a joke. All right. Final last minute story. Did you see this Greg Robinson story?
Oh, I glanced by that. Yeah, that's the
He
Browns
was
guy.
arrested at the border with weed. So when I saw this, I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, whatever.
For
And then I got a
marijuana. Yeah.
notification that he could face 20 years in prison. I'm like, for weed? What? He was bringing 157 pounds of weed. How much is 157 pounds? Pounds!
Yo,
150.
I'm like 160. What the hell? Me
Several
worth of
large
weed.
duffel bags. So then Field Yates was like Narcos season 4 NFL.
That's craziness. What the hell?
Approximately
I'm just
150.
reading it out over here.
Yeah.
Like number 2 overall pick. Yeah, that's fucked. At a checkpoint. Significant quantity of marijuana, TMZ Sports reports. That's nuts.
That's crazy.
Remains in custody.
So it wasn't at the oh no, El Paso.
That's
What
nuts.
what a crazy story. Well, he wasn't that's what you get for going to Auburn. I think that's it for this week. Hopefully we'll have Bran on the next episode. But we'll see you guys until then. Peace.